Another AriasWave update on Bitcoin, and it looks like we've seen the end of the wave 2 correction at the small degree. Now this is probably like a preliminary sign of a reversal. It's definitely interesting, the price action we've seen at the highs here. I've been tracking this all day, and to me this looks like basically a an A, B, C, D, E pattern. Yes, we had a famous AriasWave CDE pattern. And I'm just going to zoom in on this one so you can see the structure. I'm going to go closer to the 1 minute chart. Now, it hasn't been easy to track this movement at such a small degree. We had overlaps in wave 4 and 2, which means it's a weak wave 1 to begin with. So that's because of all the extreme mania at the highs. But I do believe this is a buying climax. So I do believe we are going to continue to see prices decline from here, given the structure. Now, basically, I'll go into the larger degree in a second, but at the small degree, at the very minimum, we're looking at a 1-2. It could be a zigzag pattern, but I'm going to explain to you why I think it's unlikely, depending on how we see price drop from here. So we had an A, a B, a C, a D, and then an E. So the E wave went all the way up to the 0.786 retracement. And the way that this pattern evolved, it's actually crazy because it created a small 1, 2, a 3 up to here, a sharp A, B, C, D, E, 5, right? And then we just recently broke below the wave 4 component. So at this point, because it happened in such a sharp manner, it's very indicative of the end of wave E. Now, to really get that confirmation, we need to see price fall below 87997 on this chart, and that would confirm that we're moving lower. The way that the wave 4 extended on this pattern is absolutely astronomical. It just pushed as hard as it could to get up to the highs, and it just pushed and pushed until eventually it just slingshotted back down the way that it did, right? And by tracking the whole entire structure, to me it's enough evidence to say, yeah, well, at the very minimum it's a wave. It could be a zigzag, right? So how would we know? Well, you take the length of the first move to the lows, and then from the highs you extrapolate, right? Extrapolating this down, we get close to this area down here. So if it's a zigzag, it won't go below this area, but if it breaks this low here, so this is even more in-depth analysis that I've done throughout the day. It's actually quite crazy the way that this structure unfolded. So for the wave 4 to end down here at that descending trend line break and confirmation, I believe what we saw was a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we saw a complete wave 1 right there. Wave 2 was absolutely tiny. This is why we had this move up wave 3, and the whole wave 4 correction was this big. It was a pretty big correction because of the tiny wave 4. So that's major alternation. And then we had that final spike up, right, to the resistance area. So I find it interesting for a couple of reasons. One, I'll touch on this in a minute. This length here is the same length as what I believe wave 1 was. So all the way up here, we already had wave 1 from the lows. already completed, but this is what the mania hype did. It pushed it further and further, which is why I got it wrong when I said go short here. But that's fine because the entire structure seems complete now. So that being said, obviously we need to break below 87513 to get proper confirmation. And the reason why I believe that's the confirmation, not this low down here, is because of the way that this panned out. So when A, B, C, D, E and the D wave ended here. So the E wave of the D wave was actually larger than the actual E wave itself, was actually pretty small, which is interesting. So that there is my confirmation point right there. So price should fall to this area. If it breaks just a tiny bit below it, I would say this is done. So that'd be the same thing as up here, preliminary confirmation. We'd have preliminary confirmation down here, and then we'll see how we go, producing a 5-wave move down back to that trend line before a bit of a bounce and a continuation to the downside. So that line that I mentioned back here, the reason I think that was wave 1 is because back here, I'm going to have to zoom in on this one. I believe wave 1 was actually only this small down here. I believe that sharp move we saw back here was actually a B wave. That's why this wave 2 was so sharp. I couldn't work it out in the beginning, but it started to make sense the more I looked into it. So if we just zoom in as much as we can down here, I believe what we saw here was a wave 1, an A, a sharp B, a C, a D, and that was an E wave to the lows. So wave 2 ended right at the lows. At the time, I didn't actually grasp it, but that's where I get my length of wave 5. This one here, if we take it all the way up. So we have wave 1, 2, 3, all the way wave 4, and then 5. So this thing's already overextended, but like I said to you, it's a buying climax. I've seen these patterns before where it does this with the trend line. It creates a nice 5-wave move sitting on top of it, but it's really just pie in the sky to assume that it's going to continue from that point, because you've already seen wave 3. You've got a 4 and a 5. You've got weakness in this move in general, even though the RSI might show strength at the highs on this one, right? It's really just a buying climax. So that's why I don't really trust the RSI. It's not very good for indicating a reversal in some cases. Sometimes it's okay. Most of the time it's garbage. So that one right there is very interesting to look at. Double top, you could call it almost, but to me, it's basically just overdone. And like I said, we need to see those areas broken to really confirm this analysis. This does happen from time to time at the highs, but because I tracked it religiously into every move, there is a better chance of this working out. I didn't track this one overnight because of the time that it happened. I was asleep. Got it wrong this morning, assuming this was a 1-2, but we had that last move up. So at this point, having done that type of analysis and seeing that type of setup, I'm not saying it's done and dusted. Obviously, we need to see price continue to fall, but that type of price action at the highs with a gravestone doji with a whole 1-2 completed pattern, it really highlights the AriasWave component to my analysis, which is not Elliott wave. AriasWave is a unique way to look at the patterns, Even at a small degree, it's still visible. We need to break 87513 for confirmation. We need to target the lows on this one. So I'll just have to zoom out on the 15-minute chart to really show you that we are targeting the lows here from this point, right? This is going to be the one that gets us back in the game, and also basically, you know, getting ready for that wave C bounce that's coming. That wave C bounce will definitely go above this high that we're seeing, in my opinion, because it's a wave C, and then we'll probably produce a CDE pattern, right? A larger CDE pattern, because B wave would have given this thing a good stretch to the downside to really slingshot wave C back up to potentially the 50% area, possibly the 0.618. We don't know yet, but at this stage we're just looking for that low to be put in before we can go anywhere near that type of analysis. So that's what I'm seeing on this one. Thought I'd give you an update. Thanks for watching.